And then here we go. Oh, wait, I got a screen share now. Okay. All right, so the House of Representatives, remember, is the lower house of Congress, and we'll go through that. So this week, I want you guys to finish your summative, and also I made a mistake on the summative. There's like a conclusion paragraph, and I know Rachel and I talked about it. Amy, I'll send you something because you had yours all done except for that paragraph. So no worries, I'll send that to you and you can finish that up. I'll get that. It's on there now, so if you click on the summative, I'll show you. It's there. I just screwed up and I didn't. It's this here. It's like a conclusion. So take a look at that and you just need to add that then. Yeah.
So did you get my slide with my article?
I did.
Okay.
Yep, I did.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I got it, Rachel. And then today, no quiz. Finish your summative. That's more important right now than doing like a quiz check to see if you've done the reading. So when we're done talking, just go ahead and finish up that summative, because then maybe you guys can be done with this class at least, so you don't have to work on this class for tomorrow. All right.
Wait, do we have a quiz for yesterday?
Yeah, it was just a 3-question ed puzzle.
Oh, okay.
On gerrymandering, so it was super short. So this week, the summative was the big thing. So I didn't give you a lot of extra work this week because that's more important. I want you to get that done. Okay. Okay. So can I move this? No, it won't let me move that. It's okay. All right. So these slides are going to follow your book. They're pretty basic, and I think I left them pretty basic because there's a lot of intricacies that I don't think you need to know, like, necessarily every single detail about. But rules for lawmaking. Basically, both houses can make laws, and we are going to cover that on Monday next week on how a bill becomes a law. And we're going to kind of end with that today, because I think I need to that is an area, your book is super confusing. So I'm going to pull up some of my information from last year and get that out to you guys so that you can kind of follow the whole steps of a bill becoming a law. The book just kind of glazes over it and just doesn't explain things really well. So, and I think it's Congress's job to make the laws. I think it's really important. So that's why I want to spend a little more time on it. Okay, as far as when Congress is making laws, Senate and Congress have some different rules that some things happen in the Senate, some things happen in the House, and they're allowed to do that. The Constitution allows the Senate and the House to make those rules. Every 2 years, when we're in a new session, we're in a new term, the House can come in and they can rework those rules and put them out again. So the Constitution gives them the right to make the rules, but they make the rules kind of on their own. They have to follow the Constitution, but okay. In the House, rules are focused on the actions of individual representatives. So, for example, representatives can only speak for 5 minutes or less during a debate. The rules in the Senate are very different, and we'll cover those next week, probably Tuesday. Legislation in the House generally goes pretty quickly. So people debate on it because they can only talk for 5 minutes at a time. It's not like all 435 members are going to speak on a bill. So most of the time, debates in the House don't last for more than a day. Now, that's not true all the time. I know that they're looking at a second stimulus package right now. Your parents probably got a check in the mail this summer or maybe this spring with some money from the government just to stimulate the economy, to help out people that were struggling, those kinds of things. They're looking at another package like that right now. I don't know that individual families are going to get more money, but it's going to be to help like small businesses and people that lost businesses during the pandemic and things like that. So That legislation's moving kind of slow, but generally when bills are introduced, the work is done behind the scenes and then they come back and they debate on it. And when we talk about how a bill becomes a law, we'll talk about that. Committee work. This is something too that we're going to go, I have another slideshow after this one, then we're going to talk a little bit more about committees. But basically when you're looking at 435 people in the House, not everyone is going to be able to work on every bill because there's hundreds of bills that are introduced. So they break it down into committees. So the representatives are on different committees. Some committees are more powerful than others, but they all focus on a specific topic, which makes it easier for them. So there's a rules committee. There's a committee that makes the rules for the House. And generally what happens there is you'll have representatives from both the majority party, which right now is Democrats, and the minority party, which is Republicans. And they work together to create something that they think the rest of the House will sign into law. If 435 people tried to do that with every single bill, nothing would ever get done. So they're more organized, efficient. They focus on different topics. For example, there's like an education committee. There's a commerce committee. There's, like I said, the rules committee. So there's lots of different committees that the representatives can be a part of. Individual reps will focus on specific issues that are important to their constituents. In other words, think about Wisconsin. So we have a representative from like this area, this part of the state, southwestern Wisconsin. The issues that they feel are important might be very, very different from people living in northern Wisconsin. So they need to come together sometimes and talk about that compromise. Big city versus little city, urban versus rural. So most of that work is done in committee before it even gets to the floor. Political parties. House is actually set up by political parties. So Republicans, when you look, like if you look at a picture of the House, and I believe there's one, I don't know if it's in the book, but it's in those little slides on the right-hand side that you can click on. So Republicans sit on the right, Democrats sit on the left. The party with the majority selects leaders, controls flow of legislative work, appoints committee chairs. So the Democrats can appoint those important people to the strongest committees so that they get to do the stronger groups of work. But at the same time, the minority party, so that's the party that has less members at the time, they still are represented, otherwise it wouldn't be fair. Some representatives switch parties, whoever has the majority, so they can play a part in the decision making. That has happened. It's not often. And then you also might have some independents, and they would sit in the middle. Leadership in the House. You have, and the next slide is going to show that, but basically within that group of 435 people, you have some leaders. And what they do is they organize party members, they do the scheduling, they take attendance. So when you work in Congress, attendance gets taken. And that's really important to constituents. So if there's a bill being voted on and you're not in attendance, so you didn't vote on that bill and it doesn't pass, your constituents can come back and be like, constituents are us, the people that live in your district. They're like, dude, why didn't you vote on that bill? The leaders are also responsible for relationships with the president and the White House. The president doesn't talk to every single member of Congress. He just doesn't have time to do that. And then they're also important in influencing lawmakers. So right now, the Speaker of the House is Nancy Pelosi. That's her picture. They're the most powerful leader in the House. They're basically, it says, think of her or him like the president of the House. They're chosen by a caucus of the majority party. So basically, the Democrats are the majority party right now. They got together and said they voted on who they wanted to be the leader, the Speaker of the House. The Senate has to vote to approve this. So if the House picks somebody that the Senate doesn't approve of, they have to go back to the drawing board and pick somebody else. The Speaker is really important because if the president were to die and the vice president were to die, they are the next person in line of succession to become president. So She's third in line. So if the president and the vice president were killed in a car accident on the way to some meeting, Nancy Pelosi would actually become president. That's just how it works. And we'll go through that chain a little bit later. I think that's in the executive branch unit. But yeah, that's how that works. You also have some other people that are way up there important. So you have a majority leader. It's basically Nancy Pelosi's top assistant. Once again, it's an elected position. The other party doesn't have to approve it. They plan the legislative program, kind of how things are going to flow. They steer bills through the House. So they would say this bill will go to the Ways and Means Committee. This bill will go to the Education Committee. And then they manage the chairpersons of committees. And when we talk about committees, that'll make more sense. They are assisted by party whips. So just another name, just another leadership position in the House. And those people, both the majority and the minority whips, are responsible for making sure their members are in the House when a bill is going to be voted on. Otherwise, they could miss out on that vote. Okay. So the minority party, right now, the current leader is Kevin McCarthy. So he's Republican. He's in the minority party right now. And they also have a leader and whips, which with a lot of the same responsibilities, except for scheduling legislation, because that's the majority party's job. Okay, so that's kind of the breakdown in a nutshell. Thinking about comparing and contrasting this branch to other branches of the government, just something to note is that within the legislative branch, there are leaders, and that you're going to find that in every branch of government. In all three branches, you're going to find that there are leaders in the majority party, there are leaders in the minority party, and there are those that are kind of at the top to help them make sure that the job gets done. Okay, how a bill becomes a law. I'm going to play this little dude, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about committees in the lawmaking process, and then we're going to talk about what we're going to do for how a bill becomes a law next week. So I'm going to show this. You guys may have seen this somewhere along the line in your childhood. I think we have to watch a commercial first. This is Schoolhouse Rock from back like when I was a kid. Oh, I gotta turn it up. No, stop. Sorry, I gotta turn it up just a second. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long week while I'm sitting in committee. But I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
Gee, Bill, you certainly have a lot of patience and courage.
Well, I got this far. When I started, I wasn't even a bill. I was just an idea. Some folks back home decided they wanted a law passed, so they called their local congressman, and he said, "You're right, there ought to be a law." And he sat down and wrote me out and introduced me to Congress, and I became a bill. And I'll remain a bill until they decide to make me a law. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I got as far as Capitol Hill. Well, now I'm stuck in committee, and I'll sit here and wait while a few key congressmen discuss and debate whether they should let me be a law. I hope and pray that they will. But today I am still just a bill.
Listen to those congressmen arguing. Is all that discussion and debate about you?
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones. Most bills never even get this far. I hope they decide to report on me favorably, otherwise I may die.
Die?
Yeah, die in committee. Oh, but it looks like I'm going to live. Now I go to the House of Representatives and they vote on me.
If they vote yes, what happens?
Then I go to the Senate and the whole thing starts all over again.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And And if they vote for me on Capitol Hill, well then I'm off to the White House where I'll wait in a line with a lot of other bills for the president to sign. And if he signs me, then I'll be alone. How I hope and pray that he will. But today I am still just a bill.
You mean even if the whole Congress says you should be a law, the president can still say no?
Yes, that's called a veto. If the president vetoes me, I have to go back to Congress and they vote on me again. And by that time, it's so.
By that time, it's very unlikely that you become a law. It's not easy to become a law, is it?
No, but how I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill. He signed your bill. Now you're a law. Oh yeah.
Okay. Have you guys seen that before?
No.
No? All right. Yeah, it's back, back from the day when I was growing up. So here's the thing. I know it's a silly little song and whatever, and if you don't know anything about how a bill becomes a law, it might be like, oh, okay. After we talk about how a bill becomes a law and you go back and rewatch it, it should all make sense. So we're going to start the process today, but we're not going to go through everything because this is so hard to do online. It's so much easier to do this and to actually bring a law through class, and to we pick a law together that maybe we want to see passed and then go through the different steps, but that's okay. So I apologize for the goofy slides. I ran out of time last night, and so this is the book, the old book. This is the lecture slides from there. They are pretty thorough. I just don't like the way they look in particular. So they're in Schoology. So if you want to take a look, it's called Slideshow House of Representatives, and then there's Slideshow House of Representatives Continued. So if you want to take a look at the slides, there is a lot of good information. So I'm going to run through this, and like I said, this is going to kind of introduce how a bill becomes a law. Then on Monday, we're actually going to do an activity, both online, and then those of us that are in class will probably do a little bit an extension of that. And then the following week, those of you that are here, we can do that extension in class again. And those of you at home, I'll make sure that you have all the materials so you can kind of see what we're doing. So lawmaking in the House. So this just says, I'm going to read this because it's kind of interesting. To a visitor, the floor of the House of Representatives may seem totally disorganized. Representatives walk in and out of the chamber or talk in small groups. Usually the House starts its floor sessions at noon or earlier. It is normally in session from Monday through Friday. So if you've ever watched C-SPAN, which probably none of you have, and that's okay, but if you want to look at C-SPAN and what that is, it actually, there's live cameras that look into what's going on in the House and the Senate all the time. So you can actually go there and watch what's going on the floor. And if we were in class, we'd probably watch 5 minutes of it just so you can kind of see what's happening. But what you might see there is not 435 people seated at their desks working. What you might see is little groups of people kind of working together, talking about things. And there definitely wouldn't be 435 people there. And the reason for that, like I said, is that most of the work is done in committee. So a lot of times, even when Congress is in session, they're working in small offices or conference room around the building rather than working all people together. Okay, as you saw with our little dude in How a Bill Becomes a Law song, how House bills are scheduled. So laws start out as bills, as you saw in the video. So the one that they were showing there in the video was the law where school buses have to stop at train tracks. That didn't used to be a law. It actually went through Congress and became a law. So I'm just trying to think, let's just think of one. Kids usually bring this up anyway. National legislation on legalization of marijuana. States are doing it right now. I know Illinois is legal. There's a lot of states that are legal now. What would have to happen for it to be a national law, like alcohol, where it's legal to drink in all 50 states, is you would have to propose a bill, and then the House and the Senate would argue about it. And they would talk about what's good about it, what's not good about it, what should we change about it. Should we make marijuana legal or not? So that bill is just proposed. It might just die right there. When it gets to Congress, people might say there's not going to be enough votes to support it, so it's just going to drop. After a bill is introduced, and that's where I don't like this book because it doesn't tell you actually all the steps that it has to go to before it even gets there. The Speaker of the House sends it to a committee for study, discussion, and review. If it makes it from the floor to a committee and it survives the committee, it's put on a calendar as a list of bill up for consideration, meaning it's something that the whole Congress needs to talk about. The House has several calendars, that's not as important. Okay. So this is just, this little slide is showing the different types of calendars and the types of bills that are on there. I would not ask you to memorize this, but it's interesting to see that the union calendar deals with bills dealing with money. So that stimulus package would be on this union calendar, etc. I'm not going to read through all those. You can if you'd like. Okay. The Rules Committee was mentioned before. It serves as a traffic officer in the House, helping direct the flow of legislation. So what happens is, so that bill is introduced, it goes to a committee, they've considered it, approved it, then it goes to the Rules Committee. And they decide if it can move ahead. The Rules Committee can actually hold it back or can stop it completely. So it's a really powerful committee, because if you're on that committee and you want a bill to pass, then you have a say in that. If you don't want the bill to pass, you can argue for why it shouldn't. Okay. As major bills come out of the committee, they're entered on the calendar. And then they also can decide if a bill should be moved ahead of other bills before other things get discussed, or if it should be held back. So once again, coming back to that stimulus package bill, it's important. There are Americans that are out of jobs. There are Americans that need work, that need money. So that stimulus package bill is one of the things that's going to be on the top of the calendar, so that Congress can work through it before more minor things. The Rules Committee also settles disputes in other committees. So if there's a committee that's arguing about a bill and they can't decide on it, the Rules Committee will come in and they'll say, let's work this out, let's work this through. I mentioned this before, that if the Rules Committee delays or blocks bills that representatives and House leaders do not want the floor to vote on. So people might do all that work in a committee and it gets to the Rules Committee and they say, nope, it's not going any further than this. Okay, a quorum, that is a word you should know. That's a vocab word you should know, and it's highlighted there. A quorum is the minimum number of members who must be present to permit a legislative body to take action. So in the House, it's normally 218 members. What that means is, and parties will sometimes do this on purpose, is you need a specific amount of people present in Congress in order for a vote to be taken. So let's say this is where it'd be easier to explain in class, in a face-to-face class. So let's say we want a bill to pass. We want a bill to pass through the House. We know that there are 435 members. You need 218 members at least to be there and to vote on this bill. Well, let's say you didn't agree with the bill. What you could do then as a representative is not show up on the day that the bill is set to be voted on. So that can be a really important thing to understand, is that lawmakers may not vote on a bill by just not being there, and they might do that on purpose so that a vote can't happen. And that's happened throughout history. Okay. Oh, one more thing. even if the Rules Committee does that, the bill can go back to the House and the whole House can vote on it. But usually if it's blocked at some point, it just dies. Why are committees more important in the House than the Senate? Well, here's the deal. The House has 435 members. The Senate only has 100. You could actually have a meeting with 100 people and probably get something accomplished. That's much, much harder to do when you have a meeting with 435 people. So that's why committees are so much more important in the House than in the Senate. And the Rules Committee is the most powerful because it decides how and when legislation will be considered. It can stop a bill from happening. It can schedule a bill at the top of a calendar. So yeah, they're the most powerful committee. Okay. That's it. And that's all your book does in explaining how a bill becomes a law in the House, which I think does it a disservice because there's actually a lot more to it than that. But in the interest of not keeping you guys online the entire hour, because we're only supposed to keep you guys on for like 20 to 40 minutes. So we've been on for like a half an hour. I'm going to just stop one thing here. Just give me a second.